Hey, welcome back to Evil's Comics. This guy right here is Evil Mike, or Mike if you prefer, and I got a review for you today. Today we're going to be talking about Boom Studios' Coda, issue number 1. It is written by Simon Spurrier, art and colors by Matias, Bergara, color assistance by Michael Doig, and letters by Jim Campbell. I'm sorry if I mispronounced any of those names. It's no form of disrespect. I'm just trying to read them and doing the best I can. Before we get started, please like, comment, subscribe on this guy's channel. It does help. You know, hit that bell. It's all free. All the likes, comments, everything. You know, it doesn't cost you anything. The bell will keep you in tune when I do drop videos. So without further ado, let's get into it. So Coda from Boom Studios. I had no idea, nothing about this book. It was a number 1. I kind of dug the cover art, and that's about all I knew into it. I didn't look into it when I picked it up. Just went straight into my box and I bought it, you know. So going into this, it was a little confusing, I can say, but it kind of explains itself as we get going. So we start out now. I want to say the name character we don't get a name on. It could be Coda, I'm not sure, but we do not get a name on this guy right here, which, you know, he's featured on the main cover. We do know, we learn a little bit about him and what's going on and stuff like that, but we don't know his name. But basically this is set in a world that used to have magic, kind of like a medieval, you know, type of world. There is spikes of technology in this world kind of thing, but this is set in like a dystopian future of that world, so it's a time where there hasn't been magic. Something bad happened and all the magic left, and now this is kind of the result of that world. Our main character kind of states that the world has been like this for at least 10 years, a decade, something like that. But there is no, like, you know, actual, like, hey, it's been this long, no. So we got this guy, he's fishing, basically he's at his farm, he lives on this land. He kind of just talks about surviving, you know, what they're going through kind of thing. But he does mention that magic keeps trying to come back. And we get this moment right here where this thing just kind of appears next to him on the pier and starts spouting this stuff about how, you know, the prophecy is going to be fulfilled, magic is coming back, you know, yada yada yada. But as soon as he gets going, he ends up dying. Like, it's not all there. And we find out kind of a little bit more about this because they kind of keep happening. But basically it's like instant messenger. It's like, you know, he just got a DM kind of thing, because it's not just him that sees these things. So we kind of get to the main story. As this is going on, the book is narrated, and you'll see these little, like, dialogue bubbles that go up. But, you know, basically our main character is writing to a child. We don't know if it's unborn or, but the way I read it, it's an unborn child. He's speaking to his child in the future. At this time, he doesn't even know the child's name, but his name is Gap. At the same time, we learn that this guy has a wife. And every now and then she leaves the farm and she goes out to, like, take care of spiritual needs, as he puts it. So we're getting to the main story, and basically I'm going to call him Coda for now. But he goes back to his farm and he sees that his horse has been stolen. There's all kind of stuff on the ground that kind of don't make any sense at first. Again, this is a different world. There's a couple other things we learn, like when the magic died, there was a new moon that popped up, and it appears like with the sun kind of thing. They still have the regular moon they have, but now they have 2. So we kind of jump over to his wife, and his wife's name is Serica, and she's in this town and she's taking care of her spiritual needs. And at first that kind of didn't make sense, because when they show her, she is like a behemoth, and supposedly that's kind of what she does. She does have a regular form, but she, like, berserks, and that's the spiritual thing that she's trying to take care of. And when she berserks, she grows to, like, this enormous size. I'm not sure if this is, like, you know, just a perception or whatever, but it does make it seem like she is a lot bigger than everybody else. But in the book, eventually, I guess she, like, shrinks down, like maybe she calms down, and maybe it's like a whole thing. I'm not sure. But they do show her, like, calming down, you know, kind of moving on to the next part of her journey. She ends up meeting this guy named Crotai. that is like, I guess, the same species. They don't really go into all that, but they don't go into species or anything like that at all. So it's basically like a friend that he berserks to because they're the same species or whatever, and they're kind of doing the same thing. There is a little conversation about, like, you know, Circa and her husband and this guy and his wife, and we find out because it was kind of interesting. But we see that he's carrying this basket, and as the book goes forward, we find out that the reason Circa likes traveling with this guy so much is because in the basket is his wife. When the world, whatever happened, something happened in the world and it affected some people, and they kind of went insane or whatever. So this guy's traveling around with his wife, and she's just she's completely insane or whatever, and he's basically taking care of her. Circa at one point tells her that his whole like life and mission is just to take care of her. When you read the book, it's a little confusing, some of the stuff that comes out of there, until you learn she's crazy, but I thought it was pretty dope, and a dope part of the story actually when you kind of find that out. So they're shown on like different mounts, which I thought was really cool, different animals kind of thing. And they're traveling to the next spot. Eventually they do separate. We'll get there though. But so we see another city, and it's the city that I'm gonna call him Coda, but Coda is traveling to, and it's called the Gore Pit. It has this immense, like, it sounds like a bad thing, and it's shown to be a bad thing. Like, it smells like horrible shit, but it's because they explain, well, whatever happened, like all of a sudden, like basically a scab appeared on the world, and it just started oozing like world blood or whatever, and it just doesn't smell that good. And there are people that are literally, like, you know, working around that and using the world blood, you know, what have you, I don't know. So the reason he's going there is because he's looking for his stolen horse, which he claims is a unicorn. And it looked like a unicorn, you know, but he's the horse's name is Nag. But we do see his unicorn, and we see who stole it. It is this guy who's claiming to be the prophesized prince at this time, and he's supposed to be bringing back magic. He has like this whole entourage. It's not him specifically that stole it. It's his cronies and crew. They had heard that in the lands there was this, you know, beautiful beast or whatever, and they went and stole it for him. Hence, if you go back to the original, there's all these like weird darts and stuff that are in Nag's house or whatever. It looked like they kidnapped or whatever, like drugged him asleep. So we go back to Coda, and he's making it to the Gore Pit. And like I mentioned, these things keep popping up, and we find out they pop up all over the city, and it's basically like, and all over the world, and it's somebody sending these messages trying to tell the world that magic is coming back. And that's exactly what they are. As soon as the message finishes, they just they blow up or whatever. So we got Coda, and he's just like smushing them as he goes along, and as they pop up. I thought it was kind of funny. We jump over to Sakura and Crotty, and they're kind of at like a stopping point. We have this dream sequence from Circa right here, and she's dreaming about this flower world and this kind of spidery lady. She doesn't know or make any sense of it, but she's had the dream before. She kind of tells Crotty. This is kind of in that scene where we find out about Crotty's wife and what he's been doing for her. During this time when they're having this conversation, a flare pops up. I didn't know what it was at first, but it is explained that it's a flare. And eventually, you know, being the berserker that she is, Circa ends up taking off. There are some bandits that are raiding this merchant, you know, tribe or whatever, and that's the flare that was sent up by these merchants. They're looking for any kind of, you know, active adventurers or any kind of mercenaries that would take up the heat kind of thing. And of course Circa jumps down there, and she's like, yeah, I'll take the job kind of thing. We find out from the merchants that she was not the first person to take up the heat of the flare, and we meet the kind of people that were, I don't know if we get a name on them, but they all do look similar, like these gremlin looking people. Upon meeting them, Circa is like, yeah, y'all just need to stay behind me, you know, I'll take care of all the bandits, you know, and then they kind of chuckle it off and don't say anything. We jump back over to Coda and him dealing with this prophesized king, And we hear a speech, from his cronies, and they're basically stating that he's a prophesized king. He's gonna bring back magic. It's time for a change. No, 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 no. Coda steps up and he's like, no, 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 and he has this whole like 1, 2, 3, and he goes through and he lays out all these like, there's no prophecy, magic's been gone, no, 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 these people are just feeding you snake oil, and he's like in 4, he's like, hey, that's my horse, you son of a, and he's, telling the king he's a thief and this and that. And this is when we find out that the king didn't steal these, his horse or whatever. It was his cronies or whatever. And eventually, like, we do find out that there is somebody that knows Coda. Is this guy named Mildew that's working with the king, and he basically states that Coda's not going to be so, he's not going to go so innocent or whatever. So eventually, the king calls his paladins, which are like some mercenaries or whatever, and they tend to, they go to try and beat Coda to a pulp, which at first it doesn't go down so well, but eventually they just overcome him with numbers or whatever. And as this go down, we do find out that it is his horse, Nag, and we find out crazily that it is not like a unicorn you would think or whatever, because that's its hoof right there. Remember, it's a big gigantic horse, so basically he calls the horse and it comes, and this thing is a beast, because we actually see what it looks like. It actually speaks, and when it speaks, it's like fuck. I don't know what it's saying, because it's all, but it's some kind of curse word. But it just steps on everybody, and it luckily, steps over our dude, saves him, kind of thing, and so we jump back over to Circa, and they're getting ready for the bandits and stuff like this. We get this conversation with this kind of gremlin guy here in Circa, and he's kind of explaining that, magic left and blah blah blah, and their people were kind of magic dependent, and then somebody came along and showed them that they didn't need magic, and they gave them this other, tool that was kind of equivalent to magic. And Circa's like, yeah, I've heard that before. Stuff like that has popped up. All of a sudden during this conversation, they get the bell. The bandits are there in the middle of the night. Circa's like, yeah, she runs out there and does her glorious barbarian thing, telling the little gremlin guys they need to stay behind her, kind of thing. But she goes out there, blah, 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 and just kills a bunch of guys. But there is one guy that gets close enough and almost stabs Circa, looks like in the eye, and then all of a sudden, whoosh, this dude looks like he gets shot, and that's exactly what it is. These little guys look like they have some head apparatus with a trigger and but basically they all have like sniper guns, and it kind of looks like magic bullets or something. But they are shown here, like, all now that the bandits are there, all getting ready, and basically this guy's like, you might want to stay behind me, kind of thing. The book jumps back over to Nag and Coda and the king, and Nag's about to go on another run, kind of thing. We find out that he's not a unicorn. He had a bunch of horns and antlers, and the king and his crew cut him off and stuff. He looked differently, supposedly. A lot more grotesque, I think, is the way they put it. But the king jumps in front of this horse before he can, like, go on another murdering rampage, and he asks the horse to stop, and then Coda kind of laughs, and Nag does just that. He actually bows down to the king and stuff. Kind of confused at this situation with the king being able to do this, but at the same time Coda's like, no, this ain't gonna happen. He holds the king to knife point, and he basically lays down like that these guys are feeding him some snake oil shit, that he's not no prophesized king, that there is no prophecy, that none of this has ever happened, kind of thing, blah blah blah. And he's basically like, y'all need to get the hell out of here, He's like, it ain't gonna go the way you want. And but before that can get going, we find out that the Gore Pit City actually has their own police, and like we saw with the gremlins, they there are some forms of technology and stuff. We see some armor and stuff, some weapons, and look like guns. But basically they take the king, all his crew, well, most of his crew. We do see that the guy Mildew slips away, but they even take Nag, and Nag actually allows them to put chains on them, kind of thing. But they are taken away, and that's kind of where we leave off with Coda and Nag and the king, kind of thing, as they're taken away. It almost looks like they're being taken away to a harbor or a ship or something. We do see the little gremlins as they just go through and decimate all the bandits with their, technology or whatever. Serica just being kind of amazed and enthralled and maybe disgusted too, I don't know. But at the end of this, we do see the onslaught. The gremlins were able to massacre all the the bandits easily, and at the end of it, Serica's like, "Hey, can I give this a try?" Kind of thing. And that's where this issue leaves off. There's a little more narration about, like, basically this being the setup and the, why. So when we get to the end of the story, we should come back to this place and it explains the why kind of thing. We do get a cover preview, which is fantastic. I love this cover for the second issue, but nothing, there's nothing on the second issue, just that cover preview. I don't know. But for a book that I had very little knowledge on, I love this book. The art, the setup, the gore, the whole concept of, like, technology kind of coming in there, this prophecy kind of thing, the little magic messages that are popping up, saying that magic is coming up. I will like to apologize if I did miss the guy's name. I scoured through the book, and it does happen sometimes where I'll pass up his name, not knowing that was his name. But hey guys, that's my review. Let me know down below if this was something that, sounds interesting. Did you pick it up? Did you read it? What'd you think? Let me know down below, guys. Alright guys, that's all I got for you. Bye!